like I said, I hope some of you actually go and grab your bill and have a look through it, because it won't be that dissimilar to this. And there's lots of things just like in this bill, in yours, that you'll be like, wait, what does that even mean? Okay. So a few things. I mean, the bread and butter of a bill like this is something like this. Okay. You should have a call record on your phone. What day, what time, how long, and therefore the cost. Okay. Now it's worth pointing out, when you have a look at these costs here, these times rather, you need to check with your mobile phone provider how much they charge you and what unit they charge you in. Okay. Now, what's pretty standard, I went and looked up this morning for the phone company that I'm with. What's pretty standard these days is they'll charge you by 60-second blocks. 60-second blocks. There are lots of variations on that. Some will do 30-second blocks. Some will do 1-second blocks. The reason this is important is because if, for example, you see this is 1 minute. It's listed as 1 minute here. Okay. This might not have actually been, depending on the way that, and everyone's different, so you need to look. Depending on the way that your mobile phone plan bill is structured, that might not have been a 1 minute call. That might have been like, for example, a 31-second call. But if they're charging in 30-second chunks, you went to 30 seconds, that was one chunk, and the second you went over to 31, they charged you the second one. So it might as well have been a 1 minute call. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So this is important because when you have a look at all of the different plans, when you look and do this assignment, right? They will say, oh, okay, the amount of calls you have included are, and they'll say it in a variety of different ways, which you will find confusing, but your mobile phone company doesn't care about making things clear to you. That's your job to actually, make sure what am I spending money on. They might say you've got, an hour of included calls, but that hour doesn't mean an hour. It means 60 1-minute chunks. Does that make sense? And if you're like me and you're getting charged per minute, that could be 60 conversations that each last 10 seconds. It's not 60 minutes, but I get charged for 60 minutes, right? Yeah.
It's kind of like, remember when we used to do the parking stuff? Like, it doesn't matter if you go over, and then you did like the step.
Precisely. So when you have go back to your assignment now. You know how it says there, look at task A criteria. Look at task A criteria. It says marks will be awarded for. The middle dot point there says, use of graphs to appropriately represent and compare costs. So there are going to be some of these, which the particular name for these was step graphs, because it literally looks like a bunch of steps. Okay, so this is a really important thing you need to make note of. Now, a couple of other things I want to point out on this bill. One of the most important questions is, on this particular bill, how do you know that a phone was purchased with this plan? Okay. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm one of those people who didn't purchase their phone with a plan. I purchased it separately. But in here, the thing that gives it away, have a look, is under this heading of call charges, that's all of the usage. But over here, there's services and equipment rental. Okay? So it's the idea that before you've actually completed this plan, you don't actually own this phone. The company owns the phone and you're just borrowing it off them and paying a little bit at a time. Okay? So have a look at these three components. I need to zoom out a little bit. Right? The first one, and you do need to learn how to interpret all of this weird language here. The first one is one business cap plan, MR or whatever that means, bonus at $20 per month. What does that mean? Are they charging you $20?
You get $20 worth of calls.
So this is actually not money that you're paying. It's money that they're sort of crediting to you, paying to you. And the way I know is because over here it says $20 credit, right? As opposed to everything else, which is just like, this is the amount that you're having to pay. This is a credit, they're actually giving that to you and you have to pay for that sort of as a big plan, right? You can see this next part here, $48.99 per month. That's the cost of the mobile cap plan, right? That mobile cap plan, it comes with an included allowance of calls. So that's where all of this comes from. This $176.72 probably represents, it's, I don't know, maybe like an unlimited plan. So I expect it exactly balances with all these actual calls that you make. Okay? But then underneath those two items, there's this guy. Have a look at it carefully. 24-month mobile repayment option at $32.45 a month. Okay? So this has nothing to do with calls. There's nothing to do with calls. It lasts 24 months because it takes you 2 years at this amount per month to pay off the phone. Okay? Now, again, referring to your assignment, the last item under your submission should include is an exit fee. Okay? So if you're on this plan for say 3 months and then you're like, actually, this is no good, I'm going somewhere else, right? But you want to keep that phone. Well, you've only paid off like less than $100 worth of the phone over the course of 3 months. And the phone costs a whole lot more than that. So the exit fee often represents, okay, you still owe us money. You want to keep that phone? Well, you got to pay for the rest of it. Okay? So this is the part that tells you, yes, a mobile phone was purchased with this. Last bit I want to direct your attention to is up here. Okay. Now, this is all the usage costs, but there's some weird stuff that's sort of tucked in there, and I want you to understand what they are. So SMS. Now, very few people call these SMS these days, but texts are actually classified often as calls. Yeah, that's a bit weird, right? The reason why it's like this is because the mobile phone network was built on the phone network. The phone network was designed with one purpose in mind, and that's to talk to people, right? I want to talk, I want to have a conversation, okay? It was never designed with text in mind, but some really clever engineers worked a way to sort of twist the system around so that your phone could act as if it was sending a call, but really what it was sending was a bunch of information that the other phone represents. Says, oh, this is this, you mean text, okay? But as a result, they're represented as calls. So this is 54 calls. I don't know what the rate is per text, but you divide this by 54, and that's how much it is, okay? You've also got these things, calls forwarded, message bank, what are those about? What would you surmise? Say it again.
Is it voicemail?
Okay, so Message Bank, that's just I guess that's their brand name for voicemail, right? So the 8 calls represented here are where, I don't know, like I feel like it's a very old-fashioned thing. I don't even use voicemail on my phone. But if someone calls you and it rings out and then you get leave a message after the tone, you leave your message, that costs you. And then if I have to retrieve that message, it costs me, right? And you can see it actually costs a fair bit, which is one of the reasons why I don't like it, okay? But that's what it's talking about. That's what this call's talking about. What about this one? What's that? Calls forwarded.
Can you forward calls like an email?
Oh, isn't that when your call gets like diverted to like...
Yeah, that's right. So maybe you have like a business, or maybe you're like, I don't want to use this phone at a particular time. You have multiple phones or something, that kind of thing. Maybe you want a call directed to you somewhere else, based on where you are at that time of the day. So obviously, because they're a commercial company, they're going to charge you for that privilege, right? So every time that happens, there's going to be a little fee. Last one I want to draw your attention to. What's this? What's this about?
Calls to the company.
I assume that's the helpline or something.
Okay, now Census, this dates the book a little bit, but it's one of the examples of, like, you know, there are numbers that you can call, like 1234, or like your provider might have like a number you can look up to get, like look up a number or give me directions or whatever, okay, which all seems a bit redundant. But all of these costs, all these calls rather, they cost a lot more because they're providing a service to you. So that's a single call. It costs $1.75. That's why you don't do it very frequently, okay? So you'll see all of these itemized here and you need to understand what they mean, all right?